Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Rainer and this is Rainier Books. I've read something again and it is time for the second book of the Booker long list that I've read. And this time it is Claire Keegan's novel, Small Things Like These. Let's go. Claire Keegan is a 54-year-old writer from Ireland. She studied in the United States in Louisiana, then went back to Europe and finished an MA in writing at the University of Cardiff in Wales. And she has worked with the Trinity College in Dublin, I believe. In 1999, she published her first short story collection called Antarctica that directly got her the Rooney Prize for Irish Literature. The Rooney Prize is a prize for authors under the age of 40 years. So that was in 1999. 10 years later, she wrote a short story or a novella called Foster about a young girl who is sent from Dublin to the west of Ireland to a family where she to foster parents, and she has a good life there, but then some secrets from her past come into this new setting and unravel her being there. So this short story, Foster, or this novella, had 88 pages. It was published solely in one book, and it was also awarded with the, I have to look it up here, with the Davy Burns Short Story Award. And they don't have a jury for the Davy Burns Short Story Award. They have a judge. Each year they have a new judge. And judge at the time when Claire Keegan won the award was the American author Richard Ford, which you know I have read a couple of books of. So, in her new book, Small Things Like These, which is, I think, 114 pages long. It's 116 pages with including acknowledgements. It's 114 including a note on the text. So actually it is 110 pages long. Small Things Like These. I ask myself, does this fit the definition of the Booker Prize for being eligible to be longlisted? And it's because it's the shortest work ever that was nominated on the long list of the Booker Prize. The definition is, there's no real definition of pages, how many pages a book must have that is sent to the Booker Prize, that is submitted to the Booker Prize jury. So there is no definition for that other than it says it should be a long work of fiction, which is very discussable, how much pages that would be. It's definitely longer than a short story with 110 pages. It's also shorter than most of the novels that we know. So this is something that we call a novella. And this novella is nominated for the Booker Prize. So what is this about? About this book that actually 1 month ago won Claire Keegan another award. So she's a very award-winning author. She won the Orwell Prize for political fiction with this book. So you have a hint on what this book is about. It has to do with politics, somehow with society, doesn't it? I thought it was so different when I got to know about the book, when I read the text that was submitted by the publisher to do advertising on the book. I thought it was totally different from Nightcrawling by Layla Motley that I read. But then finally, when I now look back at Small Things Like These, I find a lot of similarities between Nightcrawling and Small Things Like These, because both of these books, Layla Motley's Nightcrawling and Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These, deal with women and the situation in which very often we put them in a society, sometimes men, sometimes institutions of society. And in this case, it's the police and it's the city, it's gentrification, it's a lot of different things. In this case, it's also the society, but it's also the church. And this book plays out in the year, I think, of 1985, when a very sympathetic character, I talked about characters in Nightcrawling, I talked about the amazing character of Chiara. The protagonist of this novel or novella is a coal and timber merchant. His name is Bill Furlong, And it's Christmas. Christmas is coming in 1985. The world is beautiful. Bill has 5 beautiful daughters. He has a lovely wife, Eileen. The daughters are just amazing. And Bill is a great guy. He walks around, delivers his coal. And one of his biggest customers, his largest customers, is the convent, which is up on a hill. And Bill sees something delivering his coal to that, what he shouldn't have seen probably. He sees that a girl is locked in a shed, in a very dark shed. She's very dirty. She feels very bad. She's very young. And he sort of can't get this out of his head. So what this is about is actually something that I did not know anything about, but it's another crime of the Catholic Church. It's really just incredible. I mean, the Pope Francis, who just traveled to Canada and who gave an excuse of himself and of the Catholic Church for all the crimes that the Church has committed in Canada towards the Indigenous people of the First Nations by forcing parents to drag away their children, to kidnap actually the children of parents, to put them for years and years in residential schools and really sort of create so much post-traumatic stress syndrome, so much death and so much violence in the name of God. This Pope could travel to Ireland the next time and he could give an excuse for all the Magdalene laundries, because this is something I did not know anything about. Actually, the dedication of the novel should have made me a little suspicious, because the dedication reads, "This story is dedicated to the women and children who suffered time in Ireland's mother and baby homes and Magdalene laundries, and from Mary McKay, teacher." I didn't know anything about the Magdalene laundries, did you? In the afterword, in the notes of the author, a note on the text, Claire Keegan says that this is a work of fiction based in no part on any individual or individuals. Ireland's last Magdalene laundry was not closed down until 1996. That was when my daughter was born, my eldest daughter, in 1996. It's just a couple of years ago for me, if you can understand that. And just these couple of years ago, Ireland closed the Magdalene, the last of the Magdalene laundries. What were the Magdalene laundries? The Magdalene laundries were institutionalized by 4 different parts of the Catholic Church to get in girls and women who did not behave well. Girls who were pregnant and not married, girls who had been assaulted by their priests, girls who had been assaulted by their fathers or uncles or grandpas or whatever. They were treated as they were the perpetrators and not the victims. And they were put in the Magdalene laundries. And also, like the residential schools in Canada, these were supposed to be schools for education, to educate these girls, to give them a better life, to put them on the right path of God. But instead it was slavery. It was slavery work for more than 100 years until 1996 in Ireland, where 30,000 young Irish women and girls were treated as slaves. Slavery was not ended in 1865, my dear friends. It is still going on. And in Ireland, at least until 1996, it was very prevalent with the Magdalene laundries. And many, many people have known about this. And many, many people didn't say a word. And this is also something that Claire Keegan is taking up in her novel, because the whole novel of this 110 pages, the novella, is in a very beautiful, light atmosphere. You know, Christmas is coming. It could be a Charles Dickens Christmas Carol novel here. And there's this beautiful family with 5 daughters, and they meet neighbors, and he meets customers. He's such a nice guy, you know. And everybody sort of under the surface knows about the power that the Catholic Church is having over them. They also know what happens in the convent in some kind of way, not 100%, but they know that something is going on there that is not right. But they do not better talk about it, because it could be dangerous, because the power of the church is really, really big. Even for Bill Furlong, it's a good question, because can he do something to save that girl that he found in the shed? Or will he lose his most important client, his most important customer who buys the most of his coal? What's going to happen to him? We don't know. So this is the threat that is there under the surface of a very beautiful rural town life in Ireland that Claire Keegan is describing. There's this threat coming up under the surface that you are feeling constantly, that there's some kind of threat and there's something is not in order, something is not right. And that's how we live, and I think how people live. I had the pleasure and I had the honor or whatever to grow up in the Federal Republic of Germany, West Germany, which was at the time when I grew up on its way to democracy in the 1960s and 70s. There were a lot of things to do still, but we were a stable democracy. But people who grow up in a dictatorship like East Germany, like Russia, like the Soviet Union, who grew up there, they also lived their life. Went to work each day. At Christmas, they were preparing for Christmas. They were baking cookies. They were baking cakes. They were preparing the house, preparing the apartment, and everything seemed to be beautiful and normal. There were lots of smiles. Daddies went to work, they came home from work, they greeted their daughters, spent time with them, with their children. But under the surface, there is something else. There is something that is sort of succumbing the whole thing, that is giving you not the real air to breathe. And that happened in the monasteries, in the convents in Ireland, where 30,000 girls were locked up over the years, and where society did know about it, but didn't want to talk about it. Still, they don't want to talk about it that much. And I found one documentary filmed by a young Irish guy, I will put a link in the description down below, about the Magdalen laundries, if you're interested in that. That is very interesting to see and very touching and very harsh, that how slave labor and how the Catholic Church in Canada, in Ireland, and probably in a lot of other countries have committed crimes until today. And they are the ones who are claiming that they are the good ones, right? I have respect for everyone who's religious, but there's a lot of dark things, a lot of dark chapters in religion, and especially in the church, that really has to be dealt with. So this is Claire Keegan's novel, and that's where it meets also the novel by Leila Motley, Nightcrawling, because Nightcrawling is a novel that also deals with vulnerable young women. It's a great book, and I really advise you also to read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. And while many people are indifferent or don't want to see or cannot see what happens, Bill Furlong is a little bit different. Some nights Furlong lay there with Eileen, going over small things like these. Other times, after a day of heavy lifting or being delayed by a puncture and getting soaked out on the road, he'd come home and eat his fill and fall into bed early and wake in the night, sensing Eileen heavy in sleep at his side, and there he'd lie with his mind going round in circles, agitating before finally he'd have to go down and put the kettle on for tea. He'd stand at the window then with a cup in the hand, looking down at the streets and what he could see of the river, at the little bits and pieces of going on. Stray dogs out foraging for scraps in the bins, chipperbacks and empty cans being rolled and blown roughly about by the driving wind and rain, stragglers from the pubs stumbling home. Sometimes these stumbling men sang a little. Other times Furlong would hear a sharp, hot whistle and laughter which made him tense. He imagined his girls getting big and growing up, going out into that world of men. Already he'd seen men's eyes following his girls, but some part of his mind was often tense. He could not say why. So this Bill Furlong is a very sensible, a very sensitive character and a very likable character. And in the end, he tries to make a difference. I'm not going to say what he does, so no spoiler here. But this novel about Bill Furlong, about this guy who's delivering coal, the coal merchant in this little Irish town, is a very beautiful book. These two books have almost the same topic, the vulnerability of women in society. Thanks very much for watching this video. Read Claire Keegan, read Leila Motley. I continue to read Booker books, and the next review is coming in a couple of days. See you then, and see you earlier because there will be other videos to see. Thanks very much. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. Happy reading. Bye-bye.